Hi there, Rick here. Okay, I didn't have this when I started, so I eventually found it, but I wish it was out there more. And that is the basic coil turning 101. Richard Ubisk showed a nice video of how I learned from. But what we have is the basics of the rods. What I use is a 3/8 rod in aluminum, steel, whatever you can get the rod in. This is aluminum. Local hardware store had these rods. So we have a 3/8 for our outer magnetical coil, and we have a 3/16 for our inner gravitational coil. And what I wanted to show is how I turn these coils, because I've had a few people ask me on that. So I just take my cordless drill, I chuck it up in there. Oh, what I have here is I have a 14 gauge copper wire, which is 1.62 millimeter wire, and I have a spool that's mounted underneath here. So as long as I want it, it's coming out. So what I do is on the end of my drill, there are 3 chucks that chuck up to this rod, and there's a gap between each little finger. So what I'm able to do is take my wire and just shove it into the end, just about half, 3/4 of an inch of way in there. And then I take it and I put my drill in reverse. Most important thing. See how much is in there? So I just shove it in there like that, and it'll stay in there, keep it from twisting. So that's in there. Straighten everything up. Drill is in reverse. Very important. And then what I do is I'm applying pressure back onto it so it doesn't overwind itself. But this rod is the full length of this bench, so I can make it as long as I want. But here we go, and that's how I basically turn it. I take my drill off of the chuck. You'll cut the wire appropriately when you learn how to make the coils. The coils that I make are 144 and 81. But what I do is I pull my rod out, and then I grab 2 pair of pliers. Then I grab on each side, and I pull them apart, just like that. You just pull them apart a good distance, at least over 1/8 of an inch. And what I do is I push them right back together, and they kind of stay apart. They won't ever go back tight again. And that is the proper gap. It's roughly 1 millimeter of an inch gap between, 1 millimeter gap between the coils, so that when you do bend the coil in a radius, they don't touch each other. Okay, so that's how I make the outer coil. And then I'll show you how I make the inner coil. And again, this is 3/16 copper. And the same thing, I've got little holes in the end of that drill on either side of the little fingers. I'm able to stick it in there. Put the drill in reverse. You're unscrewing. You're going to take a screw out. And when you do that, it turns it in the right. Once it coils around, then I'll push against it so it stays in there. And I'm applying a little bit of pressure, not a lot. But again, you're going to take it and you're either going to measure exactly how long it needs to be, whether it be millimeters or inches. You can count. Some people put a counter on it so they know exactly how many they do. Let me run this out a little bit longer. So I'll run this out. I'll unhook my drill from it. Again, when you're making your coils, you'll let this lead come out really long. I'm just cutting this and showing you how I stretch the coils. So again, just taking a pair of pliers on either side of it, pull them apart, like that. Then I push it back together. Now you'll notice the gap is tighter on the lower one. So what drives the length of your coil is your outer magnetical coil, the bigger coil of each one. That drives the length. Because what I do is I make this one with the right gap, and then I will stretch this one a little bit longer and line them up perfect so that they're exactly the right length, so that they're exactly the right length. So that gives you a nice gap between the two. When you use these size, 3/8, 3/16, what it does is it gives you this. And this is a 3/8, and this is a 3/8, 3/16, or a 9mm and a 4mm if you're in Europe or Canada. But what it gives you is it gives you roughly an 1/8 of an inch gap, so that you have a 1/16 of an inch clearance all the way around the inner coil. And that allows you to easily slide the coil in after it's nano coated. And then what you have is, once you make your proper turns, 144 and 81, you will have this. This is a coil of 81 turns, 81 magnetical on the outside, 81 gravitational on the inside. This is the outer one. This is the 144 coil. And what you'll notice, this is much heavier wire. This is a 14 gauge wire. This is different. This is a 12 gauge wire. I have different ideas for this coil. But that's what they look like when you go to make your McGrath stacker unit. And then, once you go through the whole process and you nano coat, then they turn out like this. And this one is for a car unit. And this is from the Peru Keshe Foundation, or Keshe group in Peru, that came up with this blueprint that I'm following. But this is a nice dark black nano coating. And so that's what it turns out like. I hope that helped somebody, because again, I didn't have it, or I wasn't able to find it until later, and I had to figure it out on my own. So hopefully that helped somebody. You all take care. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.